everything. There comes a moment in every life when the world feels loud, crowded, and overwhelming, but inside you, something sharper begins to wake up. A voice that says focus isn't a talent, everything. It's a weapon. And when you master it, when you train your mind to stay locked on your purpose with almost dangerous intensity, distractions lose their power, everything. Your environment doesn't control you. Your emotions don't control you. Your past doesn't control you. You become the kind of person who moves through noise like a blade through air, precise, everything, unshakable, unstoppable. This audiobook is the blueprint for building that version of you, the version that stays focused until nothing and no one can break your momentum. Everything. There comes a moment in life when you look at yourself quietly, honestly, without excuses, everything, and realize that the gap between who you are and who you want to become is not made of lack of talent, lack of opportunities, or lack of support. It's made of one thing: scattered focus, everything. And in that moment, something inside you begins to whisper, what if you simply decided to stop letting the world pull you apart? What if you made a decision so firm, so unshakable, everything, that everything distracting, draining, and slowing you down suddenly lost its power over you? That decision is where everything begins. Most people never make it. They drift instead. Everything. They wake up hoping today will magically be different, but they repeat the same patterns, react to the same noises, fall into the same traps. They let notifications dictate their morning. Everything. Other people's moods shape their energy, and every small disturbance steals their focus. And after years of this, everything, they start believing they're just not disciplined, or not motivated, or not built for big things. But that belief is a lie. A lie that comes from living passively, not intentionally. Everything. Becoming unshakable doesn't start with discipline. It starts with a vow. A moment when you say, I'm taking back the steering wheel of my mind. Not tomorrow, not when life is easier. Everything, not when you feel more confident, but now, in the middle of your imperfect, busy, messy reality. Imagine standing at a crossroads. On one side is the path you've walked for years. Everything. Constantly interrupted, constantly starting over, constantly frustrated because you know you could do more, be more, achieve more. If only you could stay focused. Everything. On the other side is a road that few choose, not because it's harder at first, but because it requires a decision that feels almost dangerous. A decision that says, everything. I refuse to be controlled by distraction anymore. The moment you choose that path, something changes in you. You stop waiting for motivation and start acting from identity. Everything. You stop chasing focus and start embodying it. Think of someone you admire, not for their success, but for their sharpness, their clarity, the way they move with intention. Everything. That person didn't wake up one day with an unbreakable mind. They made a decision long before the world ever saw their results. Everything. A decision to stop letting everything and everyone interrupt the life they were trying to build. Everything. There is a story about a young athlete who struggled for years because he was talented but inconsistency ruled his life. He would train hard for 2 days, then skip the next 3. Everything. He'd feel fired up at night, then wake up drained in the morning. His coach finally told him, your issue isn't commitment. It's your lack of internal vows. You commit in moments of emotion, everything, but you've never made a decision that survives your moods. That hit him. So the athlete made a vow, not dramatic, not loud, but deeply personal. A promise that from that day forward, everything. He would not break his focus for small things, for distractions, for laziness, or for excuses. Within months, his performance changed. Within a year, his entire life changed. Everything. What changed first? His decision. You have this power too. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You need a moment, this moment, everything, where you recognize that the battle for your focus is winnable. That you have the ability to direct your attention with force and clarity, everything. That you can choose which voices to let in and which to shut out. But to make that vow, you must acknowledge something. Many people avoid distractions, feel good, everything. They give instant relief from effort. They give your mind an escape from discomfort. They offer the illusion of progress, even though nothing meaningful gets done. And because they feel good, everything, they are powerful. But here's the truth: their power only exists when you don't make a firm decision. When you decide you're unshakable, distractions lose their charm. They remain present, everything, yes, but they no longer seduce you. They become background noise instead of obstacles. Think about a time you were deeply, emotionally invested in something, everything. Maybe it was a situation where you needed to protect someone you loved, or fight for something important, or focus intensely because the stakes were high. In that moment, everything. It didn't matter who texted you or what was happening around you. Your mind locked in, you had clarity. Not because distractions disappeared, everything, but because your commitment was stronger than your environment. Becoming unshakable is about bringing that same level of commitment into your everyday life, not just the dramatic moments, everything. The mind becomes powerful when its direction no longer depends on mood, convenience, or circumstances. You might be thinking, but how do I make that kind of decision? Everything. What does it look like? It starts quietly. You don't need to announce it to anyone. You don't need to tell the world you're changing. You simply decide that from this moment on, everything. You will not abandon yourself for the sake of distractions. It means you stop negotiating with your goals. You stop giving your attention to things that do not build you. Everything. You stop surrendering to every impulse. A powerful way to solidify this vow is to imagine your future self walking beside you. Not a distant fantasy, everything, but the version of you who stayed focused long enough to build the life you want. The version who wakes up clear, calm, and directed. The version who did not give up when temptation appeared. Everything. Listen to that person for a moment. They don't blame the world. They don't blame circumstances. They don't blame noise. They mastered themselves by mastering their attention. Everything. And they started right where you are now. The vow to become unshakable isn't about perfection. It's not about never getting distracted again. Everything. It's about shifting from, I hope I stay focused, to, I choose to stay focused. It's about rejecting the identity of someone who gets pulled around by every impulse. Everything. You are deciding to become the kind of person who doesn't crumble when the world demands your attention. You decide what deserves your mind and what does not. Everything. Everyone reaches a point where their life demands a new level of seriousness. A point where you realize, I can't afford to keep losing days, losing momentum, everything, losing opportunities because of tiny distractions. That point might be today. You might remember moments from your past when you were on the edge of something promising, maybe a project, everything, a business idea, a fitness goal, a habit, and just when you were gaining traction, something small pulled you off track. Not because you weren't capable, everything, but because you hadn't become unshakable yet. You hadn't made the vow. What you're doing now is rewriting that pattern, everything. You're taking the first step into a life where distractions no longer win by default. Your mind becomes a place of strength, not chaos. And the more you practice this vow, everything, the more natural it becomes. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a different energy. You don't scroll immediately, you don't react. You move with clarity, everything. You know what matters today and you respect yourself enough not to betray your focus. That is the power of a decision. It shapes behavior before motivation even arrives, everything. You were not born to be scattered, overwhelmed, or mentally fragmented. You were born with the ability to choose what your attention feeds, everything. And the moment you make the inner vow to rise above the noise, you begin to unlock a part of your mind that has been waiting for direction. The part that is sharp, disciplined, determined, everything, and intensely alive. Becoming unshakable is not a gift, it is a decision. And once you make it, your entire life begins to shift quietly at first, then visibly, then unmistakably. Everything. The world won't change for you, but you will change for the world. And that transformation begins right here, in the decision you are making now, everything. Training your mind like an elite performer begins long before anyone sees the results. It starts in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when there's no applause, no pressure, everything. No external validation, just you and the decision to build something powerful inside yourself. Most people never get this far because they believe greatness appears suddenly, everything, the way it does in highlight reels. But true mental discipline is built in the dark through small, deliberate actions repeated until they become part of who you are, everything. And if you listen closely, you'll notice there's something inside you that already knows you're capable of more. Not in a loud way, not in a dramatic way, but in a steady, everything. Growing awareness that you haven't even touched your full focus yet. Think about the athletes, creators, and leaders you admire, the ones who seem to move with clarity even under pressure, everything. They aren't superhuman, they are trained. Their minds have been conditioned the same way a muscle is conditioned, rep by rep, decision by decision, everything. Imagine a world-class sprinter at the starting line. Their body isn't the only thing prepared. Their mind is calm, locked in, rehearsed. Every breath is intentional, everything. Every thought has been shaped. That level of calm intensity is not reserved for sports, it's a blueprint for life, and you can build it too. It starts with clarity, everything. If the mind doesn't know what it's pursuing, it will chase everything. Most distractions don't pull us off track because they're powerful, but because our direction isn't sharp enough. Everything. So begin by asking yourself, what does the focused version of you actually want? What is the mission that deserves your energy? When your purpose is vague, everything, your mind remains open to interruption. But when your purpose becomes clear, distractions start to feel like intruders. Picture someone waking up each morning with no structure. Everything. They check their phone, get pulled into messages, drift into tasks, react to everything, and by noon, their mental energy is scattered. Now picture someone who wakes up with clarity. Everything. They know their top priorities. They know what they're building. They know which actions move them forward. This person isn't superior, they're simply trained. Everything. And their training shapes their entire day. One of the most powerful techniques elite performers use is creating mental triggers. These are small rituals that signal to the brain, everything, it's time to focus. A basketball player tying their shoes the same way before every game. A writer lighting a candle before sitting down to work. Everything. A speaker taking 2 slow breaths before stepping on stage. These cues anchor the mind and prepare it for peak performance. You can create your own triggers to a specific playlist. Everything. A certain workspace setup, a short pre-work routine. Over time, your brain will associate these cues with deep focus, making it easier to enter a high-performance state on command. Everything. But building mental discipline also means training yourself to endure discomfort. Not physical pain, but the psychological discomfort of staying with a task when your mind wants to run. Everything. Think of the last time you sat down to work and suddenly felt the urge to check your phone, get up, or switch tasks. That wasn't boredom. That was your mind avoiding resistance. Everything. Elite performers aren't masters of motivation. They're masters of staying with resistance until it breaks. They push through the urge to quit early, and because of that, their capacity for focus grows. Everything. One of the simplest yet most transformative habits is practicing micro-focus sessions. Set a timer for 10 or 15 minutes and commit to staying fully present for that short window. Everything, no phone, no switching tasks, no mental drifting. When the timer ends, take a minute to breathe, then do another round. Everything. This small exercise trains your brain the way lifting light weights trains your muscles, gradually, repeatedly, and effectively. Over time, everything. Those short sessions stack into an incredible ability to concentrate for longer periods. Another key element of elite mental conditioning is managing self-talk. Everything. The mind responds to the language you feed it. If your inner voice constantly says, "Everything, I get distracted easily," or "I can't focus," or "My mind is all over the place," your brain will follow that script. But you can rewrite it. Replace those statements with, "I train my focus every day," or "I choose what deserves my attention," or "My mind is becoming stronger." This isn't empty positivity, it's directing your mental narrative. Everything. Elite performers treat their inner dialogue like part of their training because it is. Real-life examples show this clearly. Everything. Think of a student preparing for exams who used to procrastinate constantly. They start implementing simple structure: 1 hour of focused study, 10-minute breaks, everything, and a nightly review of what they learned. After 2 weeks, something changes. The resistance gets lighter. Their mind no longer fights the routine. Everything. They look forward to the clarity of those sessions. They've conditioned themselves, unintentionally, to enjoy progress. Everything. Or imagine a young entrepreneur overwhelmed with ideas and responsibilities. They begin each morning by writing down the 3 most important tasks for the day. Not 10 tasks, everything. Not a full page, just 3. After a month, their stress drops, their productivity rises, and their sense of control skyrockets. Their mind is no longer a storm, it's a compass. Everything. Cognitive conditioning is also about choosing your mental diet. What you read, watch, listen to, and think about directly shapes how your mind operates. Everything. If you constantly feed your brain with noise, negativity, and shallow content, you weaken your mental strength. But if you nourish it with learning, discipline, and inspiration, everything, you sharpen it. Elite performers guard their mental environment the way athletes guard their physical bodies. They protect their attention. They choose what enters their mind. Everything. They don't let random distractions set the tone for their day. You can adopt this mindset too. Start by shaping your environment so it supports your focus. Reduce clutter. Everything. Remove unnecessary digital noise. Keep your workspace clean and intentional. Small changes in your environment create big changes in your behavior. Everything. A focused environment produces a focused mind. One of the most overlooked aspects of mental training is learning to pause. Not pause to escape, pause to reset. When your mind starts drifting, everything. When stress rises, when frustration kicks in, instead of giving in or giving up, pause. Take a slow breath. Bring your attention back to the present. Everything. This simple act interrupts distraction and strengthens your mental control. It teaches your mind that you're in charge, not your impulses. And then there's discipline. Everything. The quiet force that turns intentions into identity. Discipline isn't about being perfect or rigid. It's about showing up repeatedly until your mind understands that focus is non-negotiable. Everything. Elite performers aren't disciplined because it's easy. They're disciplined because they know the cost of drifting. They understand that every moment of focus compounds. Everything. Every session of training builds confidence. Every act of discipline sharpens their edge. Imagine someone working on a personal goal, fitness, business, writing, learning a skill. At first, everything. The progress is slow. The routine feels unnatural. The mind resists. But they keep going. They keep showing up. They keep applying pressure. And then suddenly something clicks. Everything. Their mind stops fighting them. The habit becomes part of their identity. They no longer need motivation. They have momentum. That is what mental training creates. Everything. As you continue on your path, remember that elite focus is not accidental. It's crafted. It's earned. It's built through decisions that, in the beginning, feel small and insignificant. Everything. The decision to work for 10 more minutes. The decision to ignore a distraction. The decision to start when you don't feel like it. The decision to finish what you began. Everything. These decisions shape your discipline, and your discipline shapes your destiny. When you train your mind with intention, clarity, and consistent conditioning, everything. You become a different kind of person, the kind who moves through challenges with purpose, who stays locked in even under pressure, who doesn't crumble at the first sign of difficulty. Everything. You become someone capable of elite-level mental strength, not because you were born with it, but because you built it from the inside out. Everything. There comes a time when you finally realize that the world isn't just distracting you by accident. It's designed that way. Notifications tug at your mind. Everything. Conversations drift into your focus like uninvited guests, and the constant noise of comparison seems to sit on your shoulder, whispering for your attention every few seconds. Everything. And for most people, this is normal. This is the reality they accept without ever questioning it. But you're standing at the beginning of a different path. Everything. A path where you start to see the invisible strings pulling at your mind, and you begin cutting them one by one. It starts with awareness. Everything. Imagine walking through your day like you're carrying a backpack filled with bricks, but you never stop long enough to wonder why it feels so heavy. You tell yourself, everything. This is just how life is. But the truth is, most of the weight isn't necessary. It's mental clutter. It's other people's expectations. Everything. It's habits you never chose but inherited from the environment around you. And the moment you stop and turn around to look at what's inside that backpack, you realize something powerful. Everything. You don't have to carry all of it. You can put things down. You can reclaim your space. Everything. One of the most eye-opening experiences people have is when they recognize how often they reach for distraction without even noticing. A phone lights up. Everything. And your hand moves before your mind does. You sit down to work, and suddenly you're on social media. You promise yourself 5 minutes of rest, and somehow an hour disappears. Everything. Not because you're weak, but because the world has built an entire economy around stealing your attention in tiny, untraceable moments. This isn't your fault. Everything. But it is your responsibility to take control back. Think about a moment in your life when you were truly locked in. Maybe it was studying for an exam you wanted to ace. Everything. Maybe it was working on a project that mattered deeply to you. Maybe it was a moment in the gym when everything else faded, and it was just you and the goal in front of you. In those moments, everything. The world didn't feel so loud. Your mind didn't feel so scattered. That version of you already exists, focused, powerful, capable. Everything. The real challenge is creating an environment that allows that version of you to show up more often. Distractions don't always look like distractions at first. Everything. Some come dressed as responsibilities, some as entertainment, and some as comfort. But a distraction is anything that pulls you away from the person you're trying to become. Ask yourself, everything. What are the things you keep allowing into your life that have no intention of helping you grow? It could be the constant scrolling. Everything. It could be conversations that drain your energy instead of elevating it. It could be a habit of checking your phone the moment you feel discomfort. These small pulls may seem harmless, everything, but over time they chip away at your ability to stay present, to stay disciplined, to stay aligned with your goals. Imagine your mind like a room. Every open tab, every notification, everything, every undone task is like another person walking into that room, talking, moving, interrupting. It doesn't matter how strong you are. If that room is crowded, clarity becomes impossible. Everything. But when you start removing unnecessary noise, when you begin clearing mental space, something incredible happens. Ideas breathe again. Intentions sharpen. Everything. Your ability to stay focused stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like your natural state. There's a simple rule that changes everything. What you allow will continue. Everything. If you allow distractions to enter your day without resistance, they will multiply. But if you start defending your attention like something valuable, because it is everything, the world's grip on you begins to weaken. You become someone who doesn't react to every sound, every message, every impulse. You move with purpose instead of being pulled by chaos. Everything. One of the most effective ways to break these chains is to set boundaries with your environment. Picture someone trying to run a race while people keep tapping them on the shoulder. Everything. Even the fastest athlete would slow down. But if that athlete steps into a lane designed for clarity, free from constant interruptions, their performance transforms. You need your own lane. Everything. This could mean creating phone-free hours. It could mean cleaning the physical spaces where you work and rest so your mind stops absorbing clutter. Everything. It could mean saying no to things that drain you, even if you've said yes many times before. There's a moment that comes to everyone who chooses focus. Everything. A moment when you realize the things distracting you were never stronger than you simply never challenged them. Everything. The instant you decide to interrupt the patterns that have been interrupting you, everything shifts. For example, try this experiment. The next time you pick up your phone, everything. Stop and ask yourself, why did I reach for this? Most people don't know. It's automatic. It's a reflex built on boredom, stress, habit, or avoidance. But when you interrupt the pattern, everything, when you insert awareness where there used to be impulse, you reclaim power you didn't know you had. Think of the people who achieve extraordinary focus: athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, everything thinkers. Their minds aren't naturally quieter. Their environments aren't naturally easier. They simply learn to filter the world. They choose what enters their mind and what doesn't. Everything. They recognize that attention is a scarce currency, and they spend it wisely. And the beautiful part, you can build the same skill. It isn't something you're born with. Everything. It's something you train. And let's be honest, removing distraction isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means sitting with your emotions instead of escaping them. Everything. Sometimes it means facing hard truths about what you've been avoiding. Sometimes it means letting go of people, habits, or routines that no longer fit the life you're trying to build. Everything. But liberation often feels uncomfortable at first. Chains feel familiar. Freedom feels foreign. Yet once you taste even a small moment of true mental clarity, you will never want to go back. Everything. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you don't need to check your phone before you check in with yourself. Everything. Imagine working on something important without constantly fighting the urge to escape. Imagine feeling present, fully present. Everything. With the people you care about, because your mind is no longer scattered in 100 directions. This isn't a dream. This is what happens when you remove the world's grip on your attention. Everything. One of the most powerful things you can do is build moments of intentional silence into your day. Not just silence in sound, but silence in stimulation. A few minutes free of screens. Everything. Free of noise, free of input. These small moments recalibrate your mind. They give your brain space to reset, refocus, and return to your goals with fresh energy. Everything. Clarity begins when noise ends. And sometimes the greatest distractions aren't from the outside world, they're from within. Doubts, worries, fears about things that haven't even happened. Everything. Old memories that interrupt new progress. This is why self-awareness is essential. When you notice a thought pulling you away from what matters, gently guide yourself back. Not with judgment. Everything. Not with frustration, but with the same calm discipline you would use to train a muscle. Focus is a muscle, and every time you return your attention, you strengthen it. Everything. You are not meant to live your life constantly pulled, constantly scattered, constantly overstimulated. You are meant to think deeply, to work intentionally. Everything. To build something meaningful without your attention being stolen from you every few minutes. The world will always try to compete for your focus, everything. But it doesn't get to decide your priorities. You do. And when you finally stand firmly in that truth, when you begin removing distractions, setting boundaries, clearing space, everything, and reclaiming your mental landscape, something liberating happens. You stop feeling like you're reacting to life, and you start directing it. You stop being controlled by the outside world, everything, and you begin shaping your inner world. You're no longer running from distraction to distraction. You're walking in a straight line toward the person you're becoming, everything. That is the power of eliminating the world's grip on your attention. It's not just about productivity. It's about freedom. It's about clarity, everything. It's about remembering who you are without all the noise. And once you experience that kind of mental space, even for a moment, you'll do everything in your power to protect it, everything. There comes a point in your journey where focus can no longer depend on motivation alone. Motivation rises, it fades, it comes back, and it disappears again. Everything, but a lifestyle is dependable. A lifestyle is a structure, everything. A quiet architecture of habits and boundaries that protects your mind the same way a well-built home protects you from the storm outside, everything. And when your life is designed to guard your attention, you no longer fight distractions every day. You simply live in a way where distractions have nowhere to land, everything. It begins with intention. Not the dramatic kind you declare once and forget, but the slower, steadier kind you repeat through your daily actions. Everything. Think back to a time in your life when you were deeply focused without even trying, maybe studying for an exam that mattered, working on a project you cared about, everything, or preparing for something important. The effort you put in wasn't because the world suddenly stopped being distracting. Everything. It was because the context of your life at that moment supported your focus. You had urgency, clarity, and structure. Everything. What we're building now is the ability to create that environment intentionally, without waiting for pressure or crisis to force it. Everything. Imagine waking up in the morning and not immediately feeling pulled in a dozen directions. Instead, your day has a rhythm, not rigid, but intentional. Everything. Your energy has a direction before the world tries to assign one to you. This is the power of lifestyle design for focus. It's not about perfection. It's about reducing friction, everything, minimizing noise, and putting your mind in a state where clarity becomes your natural baseline, everything. One of the first steps in building this kind of lifestyle is learning to protect the first and last hours of your day. These two windows act like emotional bookends, everything. They shape how you enter the world and how you retreat from it. Most people wake up in reaction, phone in hand, messages, notifications, everything. The outside world already invading their mind before they've even taken a breath. They end the night the same way, overstimulated, scrolling, consuming, everything, numbing their brain instead of preparing it to recover. A focused life cannot thrive in that kind of chaos. So imagine this instead. You wake up, and for the first few minutes, everything. Nothing from the outside world is allowed in. You breathe, you stretch, you sit with yourself. You remember what matters today, everything. Even 5 minutes of intentional silence can shift the trajectory of your entire morning. It's not about routines that take hours. It's about rituals that anchor you, everything. This slow and quiet beginning becomes a mental shield, a signal to your mind that you choose how your day starts. The same goes for the evening. When you close the day with intention, everything, by reflecting on what went well, calming your mind, or simply disconnecting, you end the day with clarity instead of noise. The brain needs space. Focus grows where mental clutter decreases, everything. When you protect your mornings and nights, the middle of your day automatically becomes sharper. But focus isn't only built in quiet moments, everything. It's built in the way you structure your life overall. Think about your physical environment. Every object around you is either supporting your attention or stealing it, everything. A cluttered desk doesn't just take up space, it takes up mental bandwidth. A chaotic room doesn't just look messy, it creates invisible background stress that follows you into every task, everything. A lifestyle that protects focus is one where your environment is designed with intention. Even small changes, clearing your workspace the night before, everything. Placing important items where you can see them, removing distractions from sight, create a sense of order that your mind responds to instinctively. And then there are your systems, everything. The quiet routines behind the scenes that reduce decision fatigue. Focus drains not because people lack discipline, everything, but because they burn too much mental energy on things that could have been automated. When you know what time you work out, what time you rest, what time you do your deep work, everything, Your brain doesn't have to negotiate with itself every morning. You save willpower. You save mental strength. Suddenly, staying focused becomes easier not because you're stronger, everything, but because your life is smarter. Consider someone who's constantly overwhelmed. They start their day already feeling behind. Their tasks float in their mind like a cloudy mess, everything. They jump from one thing to another, reacting instead of leading. Now imagine another person with the same responsibilities but different systems. They plan their week on Sunday night, everything. They know their top 3 priorities for each day. They keep a simple list of what needs to get done first, and they protect that list with boundaries, everything. Which person do you think has more mental clarity? The answer is obvious, but the difference isn't personality. It's lifestyle design. Boundaries, too, are essential. Not the harsh, everything, defensive kind, but the kind that honor your priorities. A boundary is simply you telling life, this is important to me, and I'm going to protect it. It might be a boundary with people, everything, with work, with social media, or even with your own impulses. It might mean telling someone, I'll get back to you later, instead of interrupting your focus every time someone reaches out, everything. It might mean turning off notifications or putting your phone in another room while you work, everything. It might mean recognizing when you're slipping into habits that drain you and gently redirecting yourself. Some people think boundaries are restrictive, but they're actually liberating, everything. When you protect your time, your energy, and your attention, you create space to grow. You create room for deeper thinking, for creativity, for meaningful progress, everything. Your mind finally feels like it has permission to breathe, and lifestyle design isn't only practical, it's emotional. You have to genuinely believe that your focus matters, everything. Many people sabotage themselves because they subconsciously feel guilty for prioritizing their goals. They feel like they owe their time to everyone else, everything. They treat their own dreams as optional. But your focus is not a luxury, it's part of your responsibility to the life you want to build. Picture a version of yourself 5 years from now, everything. The version who stayed consistent. The version who honored their priorities. The version who lived with intention, not chaos. That person didn't appear by accident, everything. They were created through daily choices, daily boundaries, daily systems, and daily clarity. And maybe you've had days when you felt completely out of control, where everything felt urgent, everything, distracting, overwhelming. That's normal. Everyone experiences that, but what separates the overwhelmed from the focused isn't intelligence or strength, it's design, everything. When your life has structure, you can handle storms. When your day has rhythm, you can handle interruptions. When your systems support you, you don't crumble every time life gets noisy, everything. Let's imagine a practical example. Consider a student preparing for final exams, or a business owner launching a new product, or a parent trying to balance responsibilities, everything. The ones who thrive are not those with the easiest circumstances, but those who create conditions where focus can survive. The student studies at the same time every day, everything. Creates a distraction-free space and breaks tasks into manageable parts. The business owner blocks off uninterrupted time to think and strategize instead of reacting to everything instantly, everything. The parent sets routines that keep the household flowing so mental energy isn't constantly drained by unpredictability. These are lifestyles that protect focus, and they're built, not found, everything. And once you start shaping your daily life in this way, something interesting happens. Focus stops feeling like effort. It becomes a rhythm. You look around and realize that your environment, everything, your habits, your systems, all of them are quietly lifting you, supporting you, guiding you toward the person you're becoming, everything. You no longer rely on willpower alone because your life is aligned with your goals. You wake up with purpose, move through the day with clarity, and end the night with peace, everything. And maybe for the first time, you start feeling something powerful. You feel in control. Not of everything, not of the world, but of yourself. You feel grounded. You feel centered. Everything. You feel like you're finally living with intention instead of being pulled by chaos. And that feeling, that quiet, steady confidence, is what builds the kind of focus that nothing can break. Everything. There comes a point in your journey where focus stops being something you try to maintain and becomes something you are. It's no longer a switch you turn on when life demands it. Everything. It becomes a trait that lives in your posture, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the way you make decisions without hesitation or fear. Everything. And becoming that kind of person isn't about perfection. It's about a transformation on the inside, slow at first, then unmistakable. A shift where distractions don't feel tempting anymore. Everything. Because the future you're building feels too powerful to compromise. It begins with understanding that every human being is already being shaped by something. Everything. Some people are shaped by opinions. Some are shaped by emotion. Some are shaped by the constant pull of notifications, noise, and immediate pleasures. And then there are others, everything. The ones you admire. The ones you call disciplined or unstoppable, who are shaped by intention. Their identity is welded to focus. They don't drift, they direct. They don't react. Everything. They choose. They've learned that becoming impossible to distract is less about fighting the world and more about forging an internal anchor so strong that nothing outside can move it. Everything. Imagine a person standing in the middle of a crowded marketplace. People are shouting, music is playing, conversations overlap, colors move and blur. Everything. Most people in that environment would naturally scatter their attention, drawn by every movement and every sound. But someone with a trained identity, everything. Someone who has become the embodiment of focus hears the noise yet doesn't absorb it. The world is happening around them, but not inside them. That is the level you are building toward. Everything. A life where the external world loses access to your inner world. And the truth is, this transformation doesn't happen from force. It comes from alignment. When your lifestyle, your values, everything, your habits, and your purpose all point in the same direction, distractions feel irrelevant. You begin to feel an internal coherence, everything. A kind of personal clarity that makes you walk differently, think differently, and push differently. You stop second-guessing yourself, everything. You stop being seduced by the small things that used to pull you off track. You start feeling like someone who is meant for more, everything. And that realization alone rewrites the way you interact with the world. Let's be honest, distractions don't always look like distractions. Sometimes they look like opportunities, everything. Entertainment, relationships, or obligations. Sometimes they come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes they come disguised as urgency. Sometimes they come from people who mean well, everything. And sometimes they come from inside you, old habits, old fears, old patterns trying to keep you the way you were. But identity is stronger than habit, everything. When you begin to see yourself as a focused person, a disciplined person, a person who chooses their future over temporary relief, everything shifts. You no longer say, everything. I'm trying to stay focused. You say, this is who I am now. And your behavior begins to follow that story. Think about the times in your life when you were naturally focused. Everything. Not because you forced yourself, but because you cared deeply. Maybe it was preparing for an exam that could change everything. Maybe it was a job interview. Maybe it was a business idea. Everything. Maybe it was someone you loved. In those moments, your mind didn't want distractions. Your attention narrowed on its own. That version of you already exists, everything. The goal now is to bring that level of intensity into your everyday life, not just the rare moments that demand it, everything. One of the most powerful ways to shift your identity is through the standards you set for yourself. Most people operate on preference. They do things when they feel like it, everything. They follow whatever feels convenient. But a focused identity operates on standards. Standards create consistency. They create boundaries, everything. They create clarity around what you will and will not allow into your life. A person with a focused identity doesn't say, I hope I have time to work on my goals today. They say, everything. This is who I am. There is no negotiation, no bargaining with laziness, no emotional debate. Action becomes identity-driven, not mood-driven. Everything. Consider the example of a marathon runner. They don't wake up each morning deciding whether they feel like running. Their training is part of who they are. Rain or sun, tired or energized, everything. Motivated or not, it doesn't matter. Their identity has already chosen for them, and because of that, distractions don't stand a chance. They aren't fighting distraction every morning, everything. They simply aren't available for it. To become the person nothing can distract, you must build that same internal commitment. A loyalty to your vision that leaves no room for detours, everything. A love for who you're becoming that is stronger than any craving for comfort. You start by asking yourself one simple question: who do I want to become? Everything. Not what goals do you want or what achievements you seek, but who is the person capable of living the life you imagine? What are their habits, their priorities, their level of discipline? Everything. Their emotional control, their daily rituals, their environment. Once you define that person clearly, your decisions begin to shift. Everything. You start moving like them even before you feel like them. And slowly your identity forms around the actions you repeat. If you want to be the kind of person who wakes up early, everything, you don't wait for motivation, you create a system and stick to it. If you want to be the kind of person who prioritizes deep work, everything, you build a space for it and protect it as if it were sacred. If you want to be someone who doesn't get distracted by negativity or drama, everything, you practice emotional distance and choose your reactions deliberately. Every action you take is a vote for the identity you want to build. The more votes you cast in the right direction, everything, the stronger that identity becomes until eventually it becomes automatic. One of the most freeing realizations you'll ever have is that you don't need to fight every distraction, everything. You only need to strengthen the internal compass that pulls you forward. When your purpose feels meaningful enough, distractions simply become background noise, everything. They lose their emotional charge, they lose their grip. You look at them, and instead of feeling tempted, you feel uninterested. People will notice the change in you, everything. They'll see you becoming quieter, more intentional, more selective. They'll see you withdrawing from anything that doesn't align with your vision, everything. You will no longer be available to every invitation, every piece of gossip, every trend, every wave of emotion. Your time, energy, and attention will rise in value, everything. And with that rise comes a sense of power, an internal strength that doesn't need to be loud or aggressive. It's a calm, centered confidence that says, I know where I'm going, everything. There is something undeniably triumphant about reaching this level of focus. Not because you've conquered the world, but because you've conquered yourself, everything. You've built a version of you that doesn't crumble under pressure, doesn't get lost in chaos, doesn't get pulled off track by noise or temptation, everything. A version of you that holds the line even when no one is watching. You become someone others look to for stability, someone who moves with purpose, someone who doesn't chase but chooses, everything. Someone whose consistency becomes their superpower. And when you reach that identity, when being focused is simply the way you exist, you start to feel unstoppable, everything. Not because life becomes easier, but because distractions no longer carry the power they once did. They fade, they shrink, everything. They become irrelevant compared to the magnitude of the life you are building. This is where you're headed. Toward a version of yourself that is mentally unshakable, everything. Toward a future where your focus is not an effort but a natural expression of who you've become. Toward a life where your mind is your greatest ally, not your biggest battle, everything. And every day you act in alignment with that version of yourself, you move one step closer to becoming the person nothing in this world can distract.